So the Pelicans are not going to make the playoffs. Made the big trade for Demarcus Cousins and some losses out of the gate. I think we remember the blowout loss to the Rockets in the debut of Boogie. And it's just not going to happen this season for the Pelicans, but I do think moving forward, of course, given the front court of Boogie and Anthony Davis, they have some decisions to make, and I don't think they have all the options in the world just because of their cap space, but I do think they could do some things to get some better perimeter talent around these two, as well as Jrue Holiday, and hopefully go into next season with just a winning product. But we can also talk about the month of March for them, because I think there are some good signs. They are 10-6 in March. They have the 13th best offensive rating, and they have the 3rd best defensive, and that's interesting because they became a really good defensive team once Anthony Davis started playing the center position for them, and they got Omer Asik just the hell out of there. And the addition of Boogie concerned me a little bit because Demarcus' defense has just been not good this season, at least with the Kings. But they've maintained their defense even with Demarcus, so that's a good sign moving forward. I mean, if Boogie is committed to playing on that side of the floor, then awesome. I mean, Demarcus' defensive rating in March is actually 99, which is very good. So that is a good sign for Boogie if he's going to be playing defense moving forward. I think it would not hurt him to lose a few pounds, but you could have said that about like the last 3 years with him. Who knows if that'll happen. But if we can just talk about Demarcus' performance overall for them, 24 points, 12 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 45% from the field, 38% from 3 while shooting about 5 a game, attempting about 7 free throws a game, so he's being effective from the 3-point line, and then he's also doing his Demarcus Cousins shooting guard impression where he like uses dribble moves to beat big guys off the bounce and all that. So he's being Demarcus Cousins, like that's not really a surprise, he is who we thought he was. But I think moving forward, the type of offense that the Pelicans could run when both Demarcus and Anthony Davis are in the game is interesting. First, it should be said, with Boogie and AD on the floor, the Pels are plus like 2.5 in net rating, which is like, I mean, it's a decent enough sign given like they didn't really have like a training camp to prepare the offense or anything. But some type of stuff they could run. They've already done some high-low action where Boogie's on the 3-point line passing to Anthony Davis in the post. I think that's really good because depending on the other guys on the floor, you could have 4 3-point shooters and then Anthony Davis posting up. So that's pretty good. You can also run screens with either one of them and a ball handler, and then because the other guy can shoot, you can just have good spacing at all times. There's definitely stuff you can run with both of those guys on the floor. But what's intrigued me is Alvin Gentry has been using a Demarcus and bench lineup, where it's Tim Frazier, E'Twaun Moore, Dante Cunningham, Jordan Crawford, who's been great, and then Demarcus. That lineup is actually plus 9 on the season in the limited time they've had. I mean, that looks like a lineup that you can give it to Boogie in the post, and then he can pass it out to someone if the defense wants to double team him, and if they don't want to double team him, then he can just go to work because he's Boogie. And he's also a very good passer, so I am liking that, and I have liked how Alvin Gentry has had one of them on the floor at all times. He hasn't just been like putting them in the game together and then taking them out at the same time. So having one great player on the floor always, I mean, I'm a big fan of that, and Gentry's doing that, so that's good. And then when Anthony Davis is in the game and Boogie's on the bench, you can run pick and rolls, and you can have him do his face-ups, or he can do his runners and all that. I mean, these are two great players. It's whatever. I do like the foundation. I think with a training camp next season, they could get more of an established offense in there and not just do it on the fly like they had to do this season. But now we can talk about just some additions or moves that these guys should make moving forward. First and foremost, you have to re-sign Jrue Holiday. If you don't have him, then you're going to take a hit because he's a legit two-way point guard who was healthy for the majority of this season. And the moment he showed up, their offense just actually became an NBA offense. This was even before Demarcus Cousins was traded for. So you're going to have to re-sign him, and I'm just going to guess that that's going to cost you about $17 or $18 million. Now that would take you over the salary cap, but, and I mentioned this in the Dwayne Wade video yesterday, The mid-level exception's going up to about $8 million, and I think that's enough to where you can actually get like a decent player, even if you're over the cap. And I think they're going to have to think long and hard about who they choose to sign with that thing, because to me, these guys just need, through the shooting guard and power forward positions, they just need guys who can hit outside shots and play some defense. Because I would say between those three positions, the only guy they have who has put up a number of seasons of being decent from outside is E'Twaun Moore. All the other guys, like Solomon Hill, is shooting league average this season, but before that he was never an outside shooter. Dante Cunningham just learned how to shoot threes. I just said Jordan Crawford's been very good for them. I still have my reservations about him. I don't think 14 good games trumps like 3 or 4 seasons of just being not that good. They did recently acquire Hollis Thompson, who's been a good shooter for the 76ers. In the like 7 or 8 games that he has been there so far, he has not shot well from outside. But I do have high hopes for him just because he's done it in the past. Monty Eunice, before he got hurt and before all that drama with the Rockets, he was a nice outside shooter at the power forward position. Hasn't been like that this season. There's just not a whole lot of solidified outside shooters between the 2 and the 4, and I think that's what this team really needs. Now, all those guys I just named, they could go on to be great three-point shooters and floor spacers for Demarcus and Anthony Davis, or they could not. I mean, I don't think there's like a J.J. Redick or a Kyle Korver in that group, you know? I also don't know if Tim Frazier is the ideal backup point guard, because he started off the season really well. He's shooting 30% from 3, man. And, I mean, it's 2017. Being able to hit threes is kind of a thing, especially for someone like a backup point guard. So we're just going to talk about free agency and what I think these guys should do. I have a list of names that I've written down, guys who I think could help these guys in terms of they've been three-point shooters in the past, or they've been defenders, or they've been a combination of the two, and I think that you could potentially have a chance at them with the $8 million mid-level exception. Some names would be Jody Meeks, Thabo Cephalosha, PJ Tucker, Joe Ingles, Tony Snell, Ersan Ilyasova, Ian Clark, Patrick Patterson, JaMychal Green, Darren Collison, Jonas Jerebko. Just get some guys who can freaking shoot, man. And I know Thabo and PJ are the best outside shooters, depending on what season it is, but I don't know, I felt like throwing them in there anyway. So, I mean, those are some names for you in free agency. I could talk about a trade, but I don't think they have any real trade assets. And if they did, they should probably just keep them. And given that they have their protected pick with the Kings coming up, I'm pretty sure you can't trade that. So they can't just go wild with trading picks. They don't have a lot of options, but I think they have just enough to where if they get that one guy who can just really be a floor spacer, and if someone like a Dante Cunningham who can play the small ball 4 maintains his three-point shooting, and Solomon Hill and E'Twaun Moore and Jordan Crawford, if these guys are still decent next season, then that could just be enough to be a quality team, given that you got the most talented front court in the NBA and a very good point guard in Drew Holiday. Should also talk about Jordan Crawford a little bit more. If he's able to be like the one other guy besides Drew who can be like a real creator, well, there's Tim Frazier, but Frazier's not going to scare you with his jump shot. Crawford's the one guy who can get his own shot off, and I think you do need like that one other dude, because you can't just run Drew Holiday pick and rolls with the 2 big guys all day. Like, defenses are going to find ways around that. One other guy who can go one-on-one, or who can just do stuff in a pick and roll, get his own offense going. Kind of like what Dion Waiters has done for the Heat this season. That would be very good if Jordan Crawford could do that. But that's the thing with the Pelicans, you know, there's not like a crap ton of options they really have here. Not many picks you can trade unless you want to go into the distant future, which I would not do. Best bet is just hope that a couple of the guys you do have turn it around, start hitting their outside shots. And if you can just get one solid piece in free agency, then that could be enough.